Welcome to You Know His Name, a 007 podcast. My name is Tony Artiga, and I'm joined once again by John Morgan and Rick Rodriguez, and we're going to talk about Martin Campbell, You Only Bond Twice. This is the guy with the Midas touch, has saved Bond twice with Pierce Brosnan's GoldenEye in 1995, Daniel Craig's Casino Royale in 2006. And we're going to talk about this man's very interesting career. And John, Rick, I can't wait to get into it with you guys. How are you guys doing today?
John.
Frick.
Well, I'm doing fine.
Doing great.
I'm doing well. I have a real appreciation for this filmmaker. He's a journeyman, but that's nothing to scoff at. I think a lot of film students scoff at journeyman filmmakers, which is not fair, because he's a very good one. He's still working.
Yeah.
It's a different era in Hollywood. I think he now does more movies that go to streaming, at least from what I read. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about this later. He did a movie with Pierce Brosnan and Jackie Chan, which is supposed to be a good, solid B movie, which is nothing to laugh at, in my opinion.
Agreed.
He did a movie earlier on, also with Pierce Brosnan, I discovered, which I still haven't seen, called Nomads.
Which is no. Nomads is John McTiernan.
Is it McTiernan? Oh, okay, I'm getting confused.
That's
now.
McTiernan.
I didn't do my research.
Not a bad guy to get confused with. I mean, McTiernan of Die Hard fame.
No, but the thing is,
McTiernan.
It's actually a sign on, frankly, Pierce Brosnan that McTiernan would later work with him, or I don't know where the real history is, but maybe he got McTiernan the job.
Possibly.
They did the Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah, man.
That's right. They would work together.
Yes.
Yeah. The Foreigner is the one that I'm thinking of with Jackie Chan and with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, he's a very talented director of action and drama and pace. Does every movie work? No. That doesn't mean he isn't a master of his craft.
Agreed. And we're going to get into all of that because he's also directed one of my favorite films, which is Mask of Zorro.
An important movie, frankly, for a lot of Latins.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Very much so. Very much so. And so let's get into it. While he's not the first director to do multiple Bond films, he is unique in the regard that he has introduced two Bonds, and both at points where the franchise was kind of considered dead in the water. Which is kind of fascinating. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the unlikely two-time hero of the Bond franchise. So, John, you want to take it away?
Sure. Well, I really love.
Well, start at his birth.
Okay. I can almost remember it like it was yesterday.
Marty.
October 24th, 1943 in New Zealand.
Oh, he's a Kiwi?
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my original introduction to Martin Campbell was with GoldenEye. And then after the fact, it was Mask of Zorro, which came out shortly thereafter.
Like 3 years, right?
Yep, 3 years.
Yeah. And then I didn't really understand for a while how many movies he had made until I went back and looked at his filmography and realized how many of them I was already familiar with. I am very sad that he directed Green Lantern.
Oof.
Because I'm going to just go ahead and start on that because I was a big fan of Green Lantern, the comic book, growing up. And I just want to say that movie is not good. And I'm sure that he knows it is not good. And that is also another thing about him and his career that I very deeply respect is I think he knows when something works and when something does not work. And he's definitely been at the mercy of the industry in a lot of ways. And you can tell by looking at the ups and downs of his career and also in the, the qualities of his films and how sometimes some things work and some things don't work. But there are always really good chapters and titles in his career that I think are worth checking out. One that I saw very recently for the first time was No Escape from '94, which he made just prior to GoldenEye, and I was really impressed with how good that actually was, even though it was a total box office bomb. Also directed Vertical Limit, which was a weird, I don't know, like what is he what that movie was a huge
mountain survival film.
well, yeah, wow. What is it? Like, what is it? He kind of does whatever he wants, though, it seems. Like
well, he's born in New Zealand, and he's like a lot of filmmakers where they kind of become known for this one thing. He started with sort of the opposite. It seems like his early filmography was like really cheesy sex comedies or like little light musical comedies and stuff.
And here's the interesting thing. He made 4 films between 1973 and 1976, and then nothing else until 1988 with Criminal Law.
And between that, what he seems to do is he starts cutting his teeth directing TV shows, and television films.
Yeah.
One of them in particular, which I think is the one that really got him noticed, is one he actually ended up directing the remake of. It was called Edge of Darkness, and it aired on the BBC, and it was a conspiratorial, drama thriller about nuclear energy and bureaucratic corruption and stuff. And it actually starred an actor called Bob Peck, who, if you don't know his name, he is the what do you want to call it, like the dinosaur groundskeeper in Jurassic Park, the guy who says the line "clever girl,"
right?
Fantastic.
And that also co-starred Joe Don Baker, who would work with Martin again in GoldenEye. And the movie, he ended up remaking it with Mel Gibson and Ray Winston in those 2 respective parts. So he kind of hits big on that one, and then he starts directing other movies. I remember seeing a film of his called Criminal Law, which actually had Gary Oldman and Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
this is from 1988. It's not a good movie, but you could see where you kind of think he's very much a filmmaker that kind of, like John said, some things work, some things don't.
Yeah.
But he almost kind of really starts getting better craftsmanship wise.
Well, yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned like I said before, Criminal Law is that the first movie he did since that in 12 years at that point.
It's a movie about like a defense attorney dude who, it's like, I'm defending this guy who probably did this crime, and did he? And it's not very good because it's like very much like, well, clearly he did it. Look at the way he's acting, it's one of those kind of type of things. But nonetheless, and then he does another film, and then he does No Escape, which is really, I think, his first foray into, at the very least, kind of action, a lot of logistics, extras and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And as John said in prior episode, the producers probably saw his work with other actors. And
I think you can see a movie like No Escape with the level of production value that's invested in it, and it's like literally the rubric for the production design on GoldenEye. It has sci-fi elements. It has a really good working cast of supporting characters. I mean, No Escape's nonstop with the supportings. Not only is Ray Liotta the lead, which is really unexpected, but Lance Hendrickson is there, Kevin Dillon, Ernie Hudson. I mean, the only thing that really sucks is the villain in it, and that was really the more embarrassing.
Well, that's Stuart Wilson, and he later does Mask of Zorro with Martin Campbell.
And he's good in that, and he's a good choice.
Yeah, and while we're talking about Mask of Zorro, that was kind of my introduction. It's not the first Martin Campbell film that I've seen. That would be GoldenEye, but that was my first intro to Martin Campbell as kind of like a filmmaking entity, because I remember. Now, Mask of Zorro is one of my favorite films. It's easily one of my top 10 favorite films ever. It's a great action movie. Rick, you and I talked about this as Latinos, and
important to see.
It meant so much to us to see like a Latino represented that way in that swashbuckling Errol Flynn type movie. So it's one of my favorite films ever. And I remember in the DVD insert, because they used to have There used to be a lot more detail, and they would tell a little backstory. And I even think Mask of Zorro at the same time was released.
DVD was a home media, folks.
It was a home media. I cannot believe that DVD is fucking ancient now. Holy shit.
Don't tell me that.
Oh,
I'll look at the side of my house.
I don't even want to get
with
into
this side of my house.
Oh, jeez.
They can't see it, John.
So yeah, and I remember reading that insert talking about how Steven Spielberg was putting together the crew, and how Martin Campbell, the director of Mask of Zorro, was also responsible for reviving GoldenEye, and he was brought in to revive Zorro. And revive Bond rather, and brought in to revive Zorro. So I kind of was like, wait, whoa, what? He did that James Bond movie? So I went back and rewatched it that night, but it was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is really cool. Like, this guy has to have the magic touch.
He's got it. He's got good.
He's good. She good. And my big takeaway from the films of Martin Campbell that I've seen is when he's on, holy shit, is he on? Because three of my favorite films are Casino Royale, are Mask of Zorro, are GoldenEye. Like, I have to give the guy so many props. But then he does stuff like Legend of Zorro and Green Lantern, and I'm like, where is this guy? Not too long before we recorded this, Wonder Woman 1984 was released. And I remember having a discussion with a good friend of mine about how did Wonder Woman 84 get made by the same people that made that first Wonder Woman film? And I had to remind him, it's like, that's not the first time that we've seen something like that. My biggest example is, how is it the cast and crew of Mask of Zorro, that's such an underrated, in my opinion, underrated classic. It's so fantastic. Make something as juvenile and awful and haphazard as Legend of Zorro. It does not feel like it's made by the same filmmaker. It's crazy how much how that works out. But
Legend of Zorro is pretty rough.
It's a rough movie.
I don't remember it well.
Yeah, and
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, well, and Green Lantern was possibly even a bigger disappointment for me because, I mean, I do enjoy Green Lantern. I don't think I'm as big of a Green Lantern fan as John, but I am a fan of Green Lantern. But more importantly, it was the first DC movie based off a character since 1978 that wasn't a Batman or a Superman movie, like of the major heroes, I mean. Obviously, there's stuff like Jonah Hex and 300 and V for Vendetta that's technically DC. We're talking about like the major players of the DC universe. Batman had like at that point 6 movies. Superman had at that point had 5 movies. Man of Steel was on its way. Green Lantern was the first major DC hero to headline their own movie since 78 Superman and 1989's Batman to be introed, and it was holy guacamole. It was terrible. That last CGI cloud, it literally looked like shit. Not that it was bad CGI, like it literally looked like a giant turd.
Well, I think that's the thing with him, is that he is this kind of, he's clearly a craftsman and proficient. Yeah, but it's a hit or miss thing, and it seems to be a lot of those films. Can't help but think sometimes it's script. I know a lot of workmen directors in Hollywood or in movies. You know, if a script doesn't work, there's nothing you can really do with it. Yeah, I don't recall Legend of Zorro very well.
I don't know. I disagree with that notion.
Well, good for you.
Well, no, personally, I know to follow up, I really think that there's something at the end of the day that gets in the way of Martin Campbell making a really excellent film like Mask of Zorro all the time. And I think it's his pride. I mean, when we're talking about GoldenEye and comparisons, like GoldenEye has all these problems. And yet it still perseveres as an entertaining flick. But when you go in and analyze it, it's full of contrivances and confusing things, and
that sounds like script stuff to me.
It's not, but that's also the problem. You see, he's the director and he's supposed to be the one to guide the story, so that he can't even justify or even supply answers for the things that happen in his movie is pretty irresponsible.
Here's the thing. I think this
Martin sucks.
You do not suck, Martin. If you're listening, you don't suck.
Ultimately, I subscribe to auteur theory. I know not everybody does, but I do think that the filmmaker as the author of the film is legitimate because they're the ones that are responsible for the delivery of the storytelling. So if they disagree with something that's not working in the script, they need to resolve it.
Yeah.
Well, some just don't maybe have that power or have that. I mean, I'm totally pulling out of my ass. I don't know the situation with Martin Campbell. I just know that he's a lot of hits and he has a lot of misses.
Yeah.
But he is a technically proficient director, especially when he found his niche as essentially what is a kinetic filmmaker. He's a either thriller or action, move the story with a lot of,
to John's point, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think what John's getting at though is that GoldenEye, when you really look at the script, I think to all three of us, to varying degrees, agree that there are contrivances and that there are things that don't make sense. But it's still regarded by most Bond fans as one of the best Bond films. It's like, oh man, GoldenEye is one of my favorites. It's like it's entertaining. It's an entertaining film. I love that film. But to John's point, the contrivances of the script don't matter as much, and maybe it's because Bond is something where the audience kind of expects contrivances up in that point. And you know what? To be fair, GoldenEye, when you look at it with the Bonds that are leading up until that point, is probably one of the less contrived.
Well, let me just point out, I'm not just talking about the script, okay?
No, for sure.
About in his other films, for example, Legend of Zorro.
Yeah.
Full of absurd things that happen. Things I can't even fully recall right now, but things that really send up a little too far what you'd gotten out of the original film.
Yeah.
Or look at a movie like that I'm more well-versed in because I rewatched it not too long ago, like Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So Green Lantern has these ridiculous things that happen where like Green Lantern will manifest a Formula One race car that'll go up a Hot Wheels style track and like
ridiculous.
No. It's like, okay, imaginative enough, but there's also just all of the people in the background, the whole like situation and everything that's happening. Like
that's the leftover from, if I remember correctly, from a draft of the film in its many incarnations when it was thought of as a Jack Black comedy. That scenario. Well, that's what I'm trying to get at with Campbell.
Is that he's a workman, and I think he's there for a job.
That's my point. He has skills.
Yeah.
I don't think though he's a director that maybe can from the ground up shape a script. Maybe not. I don't know. The imbalance of his filmography seems to speak to that, in my opinion.
I think he's more of a director for hire at the end of the day. And somehow he does end up making very entertaining films, and most of his
but some are really well written. Like Mask of Zorro is, I think, why it does really hold up as well as it does. It's a really good script.
It is
fantastic script.
And I think
same thing with Casino Royale.
Most of the time, the strength of most films really does rely on the script at the end of the day, not even the performances.
Yeah.
Usually just make sure that they say the right fucking thing.
But I know what you're saying. Like, it really should be the director's responsibility to shape that.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like sometimes,
ideally we say,
I feel like sometimes Martin Campbell's pride gets in his way and he looks at it more as a job when he's not getting the things that he wants. And
I can make this work.
I think he needs to just work against the grain of what the producers provide from him. And I think it makes him unimpassioned at times and makes him feel less enthused to solve those problems.
Well, it's intriguing because then, I mean, we should probably get to Casino Royale, but I was going to say about like his remake of Edge of Darkness. That's also a very good script. It's a small scale movie.
Yeah.
It's more a character piece, but I
have to see that still.
It has the same skillful craft that I think kind of came to in Casino Royale.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the case of Green Lantern, it's not just script. It's like, that's maybe a miscasting of director.
Yeah.
I think maybe producers were looking at, well, he got James Bond started twice. He got Zorro started. Why not Green Lantern? And it's like, because that's not right,
It's not his forte.
You don't go like, hey, I have this great script, Sleepless in Seattle. Let's get David Fincher to direct. Like, no, that's not right for the material,
Yeah, you know what? I mean, if we can just talk about Green Lantern really quickly, like he did seem like an odd choice. No,
It
no,
is.
you're absolutely right. He did seem like an odd choice.
Yeah.
Like-
Who would you have preferred over Martin Campbell? Just out of that bag. If you had to think back to when that movie was produced, what was it, like 2010?
2011?
But so it was
2011
around sometime around 2009, 2010 when they were scoping for a director. Who do you think was on the docket?
I mean, if I knew then what I know now, I probably would go with Christopher McQuarrie.
That's
But
a good choice.
if I'm actually thinking
I
back
don't know
then
about
about
that
who
one, but-
I was aware of,
I think that's anyway.
I think I would have probably gone with, ironically enough, if I'm thinking in my mindset of 2011, I probably would have picked J.J. Abrams, because at that point I was really impressed with what he did in Mission Impossible 3.
Mhm.
Loved the Star Trek reboot, and I really loved Super 8. Which
Can I
came
tell
out
you
that
who
same year.
I would have picked?
Oh yeah, I would love
No.
to hear what you picked.
No, you can't do that on this podcast.
No, not
Okay,
at all.
I'll tell you. I would have picked Brad Bird.
Ooh, excellent choice. I take mine back. Mine's
He
wrong.
would have been
I'm wrong.
my number one pick because I just feel like at the end of the day, Martin Campbell seemed to put a lot of emphasis and a lot of good craftsmanship into a lot of the physical set pieces that he's captured in most
Yeah.
of his action films.
Yeah.
And he's also really good at working with forced perspective, miniatures, and also really good at knowing when to apply those shots along with his production designers we saw in GoldenEye and things like that.
Yeah.
So I was also thinking the whole time, like, why would you pick this guy for a CG heavy movie? Why?
Makes sense.
He's not a
He didn't even do that
strong.
bad with it. I know the clown thing Tony mentioned is not like the best looking thing.
No.
Well, I'm
But I
not even
remember
gonna.
I remember like the world. I'm not very familiar with Green Lantern lore, but I know
Mhm.
like, the fucking basically cop office planet that the lanterns live on.
Yeah, I mean the overall art direction in it is.
It's a little grim looking, but the CG isn't that
I
bad.
just don't think he's that much of a visual.
No, and yeah, your guys'
thinker.
picks of JJ and Brad, those are they can do that, or they show that they have an interest in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in animation, like picking someone that's well versed in animation has to deal with a character that's going to integrate with a lot of animation.
Yeah.
Maybe someone who can do that.
And you know what? I picked Christopher McQuarrie based off his work off of what he did with the Mission Impossible 5 and 6. Brad Bird did an excellent job with Mission Impossible 4.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's weird to see where Martin Campbell.
It's called Ghost Protocol.
We know, Rick. We know.
It's just weird to think that Martin Campbell gets relegated as like a guy on a short list. And I think there is actually some good artistry, like you said, Rick. And I'm gonna sit down and watch Edge of Darkness. I think very soon now.
Watch both. I really recommend the miniseries.
Yeah, and he just sounds like that material is something I'm more interested in seeing, something on like a more human scale with someone who I think is really good at handling drama.
I think he's a lean, mean filmmaker, and what's actually coming back to his best works, which may be for me Mask of Zorro and Casino Royale. I was gonna say he's like a lean, mean dude, but then again, I think the best thing about Mask of Zorro and Casino Royale both is that they achieve with Mask of Zorro. It really achieves, because there was a lot of the let's throw back swashbuckler type fucking movies, like Robin and Prince of Thieves, The Three Musketeers. Was it First Night? Mask of Zorro is like the only one that really achieves the feeling of an old 30s, while
Like
the
an
30s
Errol Flynn
adventurer,
movie.
right? While being modern, which is probably why he got hired by Spielberg.
Yeah. I would throw in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie as well.
Well, that's a
but I
later
think-
era, because that becomes
That's fair.
CG and
That's
different
fair.
thing.
That's fair.
In terms of real, and if you look at the Mask of Zorro, I mean, it's like they really probably really well thought it out, because they're like,
Yeah.
well, how do we do this? It's like, well, we're gonna do essentially, it's a King Arthur movie with Anthony Hopkins as the old Zorro teaching the new Zorro. So you have
Yeah.
Merlin and King Arthur, or Obi-Wan Luke. It's a revenge movie like Count of Monte Cristo, falsely in prison, comes back out to seek vengeance or justice. And, so you have all of those ingredients like coming together for a fucking sword fighting movie.
It's awesome.
And
And they did it all really, really well. And he handles it all really, really well. And I think that's the difference for me in his direction of that versus GoldenEye. I know you guys disagree. Is that all the comedy, with Banderas and the training, and then the drama when it does what GoldenEye doesn't do in living up to all the conflicts that are going on between characters.
And as much as I love GoldenEye, I absolutely agree with you, Rick, because the thing about Mask of Zorro and Casino Royale, GoldenEye was a great Bond movie that had great Bond set pieces, but at the end of the day, they could kind of also be put into pretty much any Bond movie depending on the situation. I think, I mean, maybe I'm not explaining that part correctly, but it's more so that Casino Royale and Mask of Zorro, all the action is also used as storytelling, and it comes out of the characters. It comes out of what is called what the characters are trying to resolve at any given moment. I mean,
Casino Royale is intense, and
yeah.
the thing that makes it really great that people don't like to say because it's not hip to say so is it's romantic.
Oh, it's absolutely
like the
romantic.
best Bonds are kind of romantic.
Yeah,
They are.
I mean, look,
they're transporting and exotic. They're not just next scene, next location. It's sweeping.
And that's the thing. I think that, and I think there's a reason why you only On Her Majesty's Secret Service and Casino Royale tend to be two of the more beloved Bond films universally, is because those are very strong love stories.
Yeah,
they're very, very strong love stories, and the Mask of Zorro also has a very, very strong central romance between Elena and
sensuous as shit.
Yeah, I mean that the
sword fight. That's like the sexiest
fight.
Love scene, one of the sexiest love scenes in the 90s, but they're sword fighting.
I listen, I think it's actually one of the most
it's fantastic.
I think it's one of the best love scenes in any film, period.
And he directs it well. And it's him and his cinematographer, I think we mentioned in the prior episode, is Phil Mayhew. Who he's worked with, and I think their collaboration has gotten better and better and better.
Yeah. And you want to talk about a fantastic score.
Oh God, the fucking polar opposite of
GoldenEye. Oh,
James Horner, rest in peace.
My God, what a score!
Well, I'd love to see behind the scenes footage of that, because, like John said, he was just like, this scored shit, on GoldenEye. He probably was like, thank fucking Christ, with Horner.
I mean,
totally.
What a fantastic, and I will say I would have actually loved to have heard James Horner do a Bond score. I think he would have done a really good job. But
it would have been like 48 Hours or Commando.
I'm like
steel drums, and
I'd be fine with that. But I really, really love.
I know I would have dug it. I love those scores.
Yeah, I love the scores for both Casino Royale and for Mask of Zorro. And Mask of Zorro,
he really steps it up in Casino.
He really does. He really
Martin
does.
Campbell.
So the thing that one of the things we have to talk about, because I think we've kind of touched upon it here and there, is the casting that he does is almost always, when it works, oh my God, does it work? And I think that GoldenEye and Casino Royale, which we kind of touched upon in the last episode, are two of the best cast Bond films. So we really should, and I really want to get into that. So let's start off with GoldenEye. We're talking about a cast that has Judi Dench, Alan Cumming, Sean Bean, Famke Janssen, Isabella Scorupco, who was
never to be seen again.
No, she did Reign of Fire, and I think that came out after.
Well, she actually worked with him again in Vertical Limit.
Yes,
John's
that is true.
favorite movie.
That is true. Right. Which, by the way, Vertical Limit is kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. It makes no goddamn sense.
I've never seen it. I remember the trailer in which someone's falling and someone grabs someone, and then the camera goes past on a crane to show you how deep.
Rick, it opens up with the shittiest eagle I have ever seen in my life. The shittiest CGI eagle that I've ever seen in my life. It is so... It looks like an early PlayStation 1 cutscene. And for some reason, I'm like, I'm in. I already know what kind of fucking thing
Look
I'm
at this cast. Chris O'Donnell, Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Scott fucking Glenn.
Yeah.
Tamara Morrison, Alexander Siddig. Yeah, he gets people. And Stuart Wilson again.
Stuart Wilson.
Ben Mendelsohn.
Ben fucking Mendelsohn. Director credit.
I got to see Vertical Limit.
Or maybe you will. Maybe
not
you'll
bad.
regret it. But I
I
think
gotta
you
see
should
this mountain thriller.
Yeah, you have
It's
to see this
very
mountain
silly,
thriller.
but it's
incredibly
fun.
silly. So yeah, let's and then Casino Royale, the intro of Daniel Craig. I mean, we also have to talk about that. He introed 2 Bonds. So he introed Pierce Brosnan as James Bond in GoldenEye. Introed
And he tops the
Daniel
fucking
Craig.
shit out of it.
Yeah, and then Daniel Craig, James Bond. And then we also have he brings back Judi Dench. But then we have Mads Mikkelsen as Lashif. We have
Probably once again the intro to the more international world.
Yeah.
In that
Absolutely.
movie.
And then we have Eva Green as probably the best Bond leading lady of all time.
No argument here.
I mean, at least for my for by my estimation.
And that's not just like a fucking
yeah.
We saw it at our age, so we like it. It's like, no, this is a really good fucking movie.
No, this is a fantastic movie.
I love Casino Royale. It's excellent.
Jesper Christensen is Mr. White and Giancarlo Giannini as Rene Mathis, who kind of and let's also not forget Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter.
As Felix Leiter.
He owns that role.
Oh,
I think he became the best period right there.
Yeah. Not even close.
He's like, I'll front you the money. Does it look like we need the money? Talking about the U.S. finances and stuff. Yeah, fucking great. And I'm glad he's back in the next one.
He should have quickly said, like, yes, we need the money.
He's like, does it look like we need the money? Please don't lose.
We need the money.
I'm responsible for that money.
Please, I really need the money.
Oh my god, fantastic! And
I
that's
don't have a room.
Yeah, and we'll get into this more
in the bush outside.
And we'll get more into this when we talk Casino Royale. But another movie where it uses the historical background very cleverly. I think that's something that amongst my three, the 3 that we mentioned that are kind of are the ones that he's most notable for. He uses the historical backdrop really, really well, and the way that he kind of addresses what does Bond look like after 9/11 he addresses it very well in Casino Royale. But let's stay on the casting for right now. John, what are your thoughts on the casting of these two fantastically cast Bond films?
They're good. The casting is good.
It's John Morgan, everybody.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, what hasn't been said. I mean, I think Martin Campbell just has a strength for actors, and I think he that's another reason why I think again, reiterating, like, we see a movie by his and notice all these problems with the script, but the actors are playing it so well that you just totally fucking forget about it. That's a real talent.
I'm looking at his two new he did one in 2017 with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan, which was a thriller, and it also
bombed.
James Bond.
Yeah, James bombed hard. And I think
no, it did not bomb.
Didn't it?
I have here a budget of 35. Internationally, it made $145 million.
Oh, wow. I thought it was really bad. It probably didn't do well here in the US, though.
I don't think it really got a big release here. Probably around the world, because they're like, Jackie Chan?
Everybody loves Jackie
Pierce
Chan.
Brosnan?
I think people underestimate in the United States.
This seems to be a good movie. It's got an audience score of A-.
Oh, wow. I heard a lot of really weird things about it. I actually want to watch that now.
Yeah, now I want to see it, and he's working on one now. I mean, and I'm only bringing this up because he's doing a movie with fucking Michael Keaton and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah,
I mean,
called The Asset. So
I mean,
there you go. It continues.
He's always good with the casting. He knows how to work with actors' strengths. And I think another interesting thing I noticed from watching some behind the scenes stuff with him on GoldenEye is just how severely he cares about a lot of the details that go into the filmmaking process. And when it comes to the acting, it's all down to planning for him to make sure that he and the performers have the time they need to work out the scene and make sure that it's supplied with the urgency and just the deliberate emotional purpose in mind, and that they not stray too far from, like, all right, I just need you to get these fucking lines out. Like, some directors will be under really tight time constraints and budgets, and just say the fucking line, action. And
Yeah.
I'm sure he can be severe like that, but I think he knows to scare the fucking hell out of his actors when he casts them, to know their fucking lines when they come to set, because they don't want to keep spending money. So
What is that story, Tony, that Brosnan said that Campbell would say to him?
You better be fucking good. It better be fucking good.
Yeah,
Sharp as a knife. Sharp as a knife.
That feels like the whole part of what the production was. It's like,
Oh,
we
yeah,
gotta go, we gotta go.
Oh, I was here. I was watching.
We gotta do this, you know.
I was watching behind the scenes featurettes last night on this
Yeah.
movie, and it's amazing watching Martin Campbell behind the camera. And I really like relate to him as a filmmaker because he's such a fucking asshole. And I love it and I hate it because I feel sorry for everybody on set that's feeling that tension. But I got to tell you, when you're watching those takes, Pierce Brosnan's running like a bat out of fucking hell because Martin Campbell's like, go, action. And then, like, everybody's like, oh God, he said action. And like their whole fucking jobs are on the line all of a sudden. And they really take it seriously in those takes. It really makes it.
Well, how are you going to run a production like that? Lackadaisically?
He is such a fucking workhorse in that. And that story that Rick mentioned in, like, it's in the Everything or Nothing documentary. It's like, you gotta be fucking good. Gotta be good. Shut up for the night. It's like, it's fucking nuts just how far he push.
I appreciate his enthusiasm, though.
Yeah.
As a director myself, I mean, I'm going to say like I'm an actual film director, but as someone who's directed movies.
Well, it sounds like he hires workers.
He does, and I think he.
I mean, like Mel Gibson may be a maniac, but everything I've read about him in terms of his work ethic is that he comes to play. You know?
Yeah, there's that Australian work ethic,
right?
Where everybody's there to work and play at the same time.
Yeah,
and
have you ever heard anything about? I've never heard any prima donna shit on Samuel Jackson or Michael Keaton. Yeah, these are actors that are probably like, everyone's on the same fucking page. Show up and let's do this.
They love to work and they're there to work.
Right.
And they're happy to work. And they're really happy when the director gets what they want. And Martin Campbell's someone who wants to just get it in one take and move right the fuck on with his life.
And he gets a great Zorro out of Antonio Banderas.
He really does.
And
Hopkins,
dude.
And Hopkins, man.
He just so quick side note.
Catherine Zeta-Jones became a fucking star off that film.
Wait, who?
Right.
You know?
Oh,
Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was it for her. Like, between that and Chicago.
Yeah, he's good with women. Maybe like that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Famke Janssen in GoldenEye, Catherine in Zorro, and then Eva Green in Casino.
Yeah.
Like plays into the actors thing, and those are strong fucking parts for women. And he's good at violence. He gets really good at violence by Casino Royale.
Yeah. And you know what else? He's also good at tailoring the action and violence to the tone of film that he's making.
Yeah.
The
the violence in Zorro is not the violence in
Casino.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very fun and clever.
And it works.
Beautifully shot.
It's fantastic, and it's beautiful in its simplicity. Like when he's doing the jumping up on the table and doing the flips, and like it's the camera just stays on him. That's it. It doesn't cut away.
Well, let's say about that. I mean, like in an era, especially Casino Royale era, where action was, oh good God, we're not in that era anymore. But in that mid-aughts, it was just from the mid all the way to near the end. It felt like it was nothing but handheld, quick cuts. What the fuck is happening?
Oh, man.
Well,
yeah.
And he didn't do that. You know.
No.
I'm gonna blame Paul Greengrass for that bullshit.
Yes, he did it in one movie, and then everybody fucking did it.
Yeah, because I love the way that it's used in the Bourne films. It's the imitators that fucking drive me nuts. But the funny,
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Because by the Bourne Supremacy, I was like off.
Yeah, I still love it in Bourne Supremacy. That's just me personally.
Yeah,
like I said, the imitators are the ones like the Taken. The Taken's was where it's like, okay.
Oh yeah, the famous I forgot what Taken.
Taken 3 when he climbs over the fence.
Jump over a fence and it's like fucking.
I saw that in theaters.
5,000 cuts.
I saw that in theaters and I was like, how many cuts does it take to get a Liam Neeson over a fence?
It really does.
The answer is 37.
I'm 37. Hey, look at that! Taken reference and a Clerks reference all at once. But it's funny because
you expect.
Do not boo Clerks in my presence, Rick. Ever.
You heard him, Tony. Don't you dare boo Clerks.
Clerks. Mallrats, go ahead.
Back to Bond.
Back to Martin Campbell.
Back to Martin Campbell. Well, the thing about shit, I lost my plane of thought.
Train of thought.
Train of thought, and it's funny that you mentioned that Casino Royale doesn't do what the Bourne films and other shaky cam action movies did up until that point, because part of the reason that Casino Royale was rebooted the way it was is because of the popularity of the Bourne films
Oh yeah, and Batman Begins.
and Batman Begins. And it's kind of and it's just kind of fascinating how a movie that clearly takes its cue, or at least reads the room enough to be like, this is where it seems to be going. We should go there as well. Also manages to avoid probably the biggest criticism of those action films. And
including the next one, Quantum of Solace. Good fucking God.
Yeah, like you
the
want to talk
editing
about
in those action scenes is, I mean, it's epileptic. It's insane.
It's like, I mean, and that movie has a whole other slew of issues that I have with it, but we'll get to that. But you are absolutely right. It's like that was like Casino Royale took its cue from the the Bourne and the action films of the day, but still kept it a James Bond film. Kept the action clean, clear, some awesome camera moves.
I think by then Campbell is awesome. To speak to him, you know, by then it's like, no, I know how to shoot this and I don't have to be Paul Greengrass.
Yeah.
I know how to do this.
Yeah, for sure. We can be inspired by Paul Greengrass without becoming.
I can make this exciting and you can still know what's happening, and it's good.
It's more exciting watching the opening of Casino Royale with it being locked off cameras.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
In an empty room at night.
I think of that, and then later the fucking imagine the quick cut of the sword fighting in the stairway.
Yeah.
In Casino Royale. Like imagine if that was like quick. No, it's scary when you're seeing that in the wide, the guy like swinging a fucking sword at James Bond's head. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good. He knows where to cut, and that's definitely a good talent he's always carried into all of his movies, at least what I've seen.
He knows how to cut, and he knows. God damn, he knows how to cut. And the stroke of genius of having that pre-credit sequence in black and white.
That was great. That was a great stroke.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it really comes down to how passionate he is about the story at the end of the day. And when it's just a job, it's definitely just a job. Like Green Lantern's that exception. I think you're right. Like the Immigrant, is that the Jackie Chan movie?
The Foreigner.
The Foreigner. I think The Foreigner is probably a really excellent film. And because it's working in those themes that he's familiar with working in, like with Edge of Darkness. He likes doing those redemptive tales about someone fighting for the people. I think that's another reason why maybe someone tapped him.
Technically, Mask of Zorro is a political film.
It is.
I mean,
it is not a historical document.
No.
But it is dealing with that concept of political corruption. And I think that's something that clearly he's personally invested in. And I think maybe he doesn't have major commentaries about politics in his films, but it's definitely something that
he works within genre, but it seems to be a touchstone of his work.
He likes to make sure that there's that theme. There's something in there that's going to pull him in and make it worthwhile for him.
Right.
And you can see why he would get into a movie like Green Lantern because of that deliberate, like the idea that he's fighting on behalf of all people. I don't know. I really think he was just hired for that. It's a stretch. It's a stretch to pull him into that and see what he would get out of it personally. Yeah. So I think it's quite clear when he's hired for a job versus when he's very passionate for his story.
Yeah. And I think that's a very astute point. But just to get back on track to talk about the casting of these particular films. I mean, he is the man with the Midas touch for this franchise. Like he's for Bond. He's restarted it twice. I mean, I think to really appreciate just how massive of a job it is, we kind of need to understand what the state of the Bond franchise was at that point. So, Rick, I think you mentioned in the last episode, or we at least discussed this, that when GoldenEye was coming out, I mean, there was the assumption that, oh, they didn't like Dalton, so they kind of waited for 6 years, yada, 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 which is kind of bullshit. We all knew that he was working, and they were working on a third movie. Supposedly it was going to be called Property of a Lady.
Well, based on a short story of Fleming's.
Yeah. Like, it was going to be, I think it was going to be based off that. I think they were even going to call it that at one point. Who knows? I don't think it would have been out of place for the Dalton films to be named that. But it was 6 years.
Sounds a little Merchant Ivory, but maybe, yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Property of a Lady.
The Property of a Lady. I mean, better than 007 in New York. So
Bond Takes Manhattan.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about that one.
Oh man, can you imagine Jim Henson's James Bond? Like, waka waka.
The name
Yes, and now I want
is Jimmy Bond.
Hi, my name is Frog. Kermit the Frog.
Sounds great.
Thank you. But yeah, but at this point, regardless of what happened beyond the scenes, I think the perception was that because Dalton had kind of quote unquote failed, that's why he wasn't on the screen, and people's interest was kind of waning at that point. So would that be a fair assessment, do you think, Rick? Or that even if that wasn't really the truth, that was like the perception? That...
Well, it was just more the assumption that because the Dalton ones weren't ultra. I mean, actually, like Living Daylights made just as much money as the last 2 or 3, Moore's made in theaters.
Oh, absolutely. People forget.
It was really License to Kill that kind of suffered a little bit of a blow, but that famously came out not during its typical Thanksgiving thing. It came out in the summer of '89, which had Lethal Weapon 2, Batman, Ghostbusters 2, fucking Star Trek, whatever, 8,
fucking Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
So it was a fucking stacked summer of sequels.
Stacked summer. Stacked summer.
Yeah, so I think it just got buried. And what everyone thinks of License to Kill, but I definitely remember the GoldenEye feeling was that people were just kind of welcome to it. Like, oh, a new Bond.
Yeah.
Cool. Like it wasn't I don't think they really had to sell much to it. I'm sure they were nervous as shit.
The marketing campaign was heavy on GoldenEye.
It was, yeah.
And really 6 years before, they're like, are people going to give a shit? Or is this thing going to bomb? Hence what John said, like part of the theme in GoldenEye is, is he still relevant and all this stuff? Or is he like a dinosaur, as Judi Dench says? And the movie, I mean, here we are now. The franchise is still going, and Brosnan made 4 all real big hits.
Yeah.
And then when that stopped, I was frankly surprised when they hired Campbell again, and it's a very different movie.
Very different movie. And I think all those are very astute points. I think we should talk I kind of want to just point out very, very briefly that in the movies leading up to GoldenEye, there was a perception. My problem with the Dalton films. I actually really like Dalton in the role, and I actually really quite like Living Daylights, quite a bit.
I like Living Daylights.
I like Living Daylights, and I actually like License to Kill enough as well. But I think both those movies suffer from, and to a much greater extent than the Brosnan movies did, because they had a little bit of this too. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Like they wanted to have this this dirtier, grittier Bond, and they still have like these weird, over the top.
Well, I would argue
really silly.
Yeah,
like Roger Moore running around in like circus outfits on a train.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It works in the milieu of, for the most part, it works in the milieu of what Roger was trying to do. But it's like you're trying to have this really the whole opening sequence of Living Daylights, which is actually a really cool sequence. But the whole death to spies, and it's a little bit grimier and dirtier. But you still have this whole gag where M has a fully furnished office in the back of a fucking aircraft, like that. And when it opens, it's like, oh no, my paper's all over the place. Like, come on. So and I think, and with Casino Royale, I mean, Die Another Day was so messy and so
Awesome.
We're not talking about that. He didn't do that one.
I think we should talk about like the state of Die Another Day and the kind of feeling that people had about how do we move forward with Bond. It's like I think the producers themselves was like it didn't feel right to have that kind of glibness anymore.
Well, I think the producers obviously had to take a moment for self-reflection after the audience reaction was so like.
Yeah, but that's not really true. That's retrospect. The audience reaction on Die Another Day was not bad. Matter of fact, it
wasn't horrible.
It got a lot of criticism openly from people.
Later, subsequent.
Like, I mean, it was a successful movie, but it doesn't mean that people didn't go ahead and call it out for all the shit it was doing. Like, it was ridiculous.
But that came off later from people of your fucking age. Just kidding.
My age.
That criticized it. For the most part, it was not a horribly received movie, and it did make a fuck ton of money.
Yeah, it made a huge ton of money.
I think it's the highest grossing of Brosnan's films.
I think so. And look, leading up to that movie, it was huge deal was made about the fact that Halle Berry was going to be a Bond girl.
And the Jinx thing spinoff, right?
And then the Jinx spinoff. So like the reaction was kind of like, I mean, it's a Bond movie, you know, like no, there was I do not remember any sort of super vitriolic like level of like, oh my god, you ruined my franchise. Like,
yeah, no, not at all. And I think what ended up, I actually don't buy what they say in Everything or Nothing when they're like, oh, we just don't know what to do after 9/11. Die Another Day comes out 2002.
Yeah, but
and
remember,
people seem pretty fucking fine with it. They weren't like,
yeah,
you know, like of course, yeah, Invisible Car, you know, Ice Hotel and shit, you know.
Yeah.
But my point is that
he fucking surfs a tidal wave,
and looks like shit.
I laughed my ass off in the theater audibly with the rest of the audience. I can assure you, I was there.
Well, you're New York. And John's making a face. You can't see it.
I was there. I'm just saying you couldn't see that movie in theaters and not laugh at some of the shit that you were being served up. I feel like the feeling from a lot of people.
Thought it was great. And but I mean, but I think what Tony's trying to say or trying to get me to get to is that it wasn't like a I don't know what's an example where it's holy shit, we need to really fucking restart this shit.
No. Yeah.
I guess like what Spider-Man Amazing Spider-Man 2 where people were like, oh god, that crashed and you know.
Yeah, no.
That kind of thing where it's like we need to do something else.
For sure.
Well, and if the producers have said like, well, we just don't know what else to do other than do this new thing. And I can't help but think they just kind of thought that would yield them, I don't know, better results. Maybe they really did think, and in a way, Die Another Day is kind of a where the fuck do you go from here?
Well, I mean,
because they like shoot the moon, you know,
for sure. And the thing is, I'm going to slightly disagree with you, Rick, about because I actually do think that them acknowledging how 9/11 is going to affects these movies is astute because yes, it came out in 2002, but it was made leading up to, it was written.
Yeah, but the result of the result. I mean, like, okay, yeah, like I know the rep now of Die Another Day, but the result in terms of finance, in terms of money.
I know. I mean,
and I'm nothing to say like, oh, 9/11 really affected people.
I know. Hold on.
James Bond,
and
you know?
That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting, because I completely agree with you that yes, it was very successful. It was still successful, and I think if you just look at the dollars and cents of it, it's like you can make the argument that maybe they should have continued in that route because maybe people needed the escape at the time. So I don't think so. Nobody's. I'm not suggesting that it's because, oh man, 9/11 created a failure. It's more like, shit, we have this huge event that, and we're trying to make movies that reflect a worldview before that event. And I don't think that that's appropriate anymore. And I think that's very fair, especially, and I think it was a kind of I don't know what's the right word. I think, but it was just like kind of a a climax of sorts where you have that horrific event happen. You have even though it was a vitriolic response to Die Another Day, people started to acknowledge like, maybe it's getting a little silly with the invisible car, which grew in later years. But also at that same time, Bourne is getting more popular. They got the rights back to Casino Royale. You know, I mean, Bourne came out in 2002. And Bourne,
I think really it's that. I
Yeah.
think they overplay the 9/11 thing and they underplay that they were looking at all these other franchises
but
that were maybe making a little bit more money than them.
They
no,
were
for
very
sure.
tonally different from Die Another Day.
Yeah.
And very tonally different from Die Another Day. So we're like, oh, if we do that, maybe we'll get that change.
Yeah, so
We'll
they
get
went the
that-
serious route and said,
Yeah.
what if we took all the fun out of James Bond? No more gadgets. He gets a phone and a gun. Action.
Love it. Anyway, I love because honestly, look, I love the gadgets, I love the toys, but Casino Royale will always go down as my favorite Bond film because it brought that character back to humanity that I hadn't felt since that point since I revisited
Royale's
the
a
early
real
Casino
movie,
Royale.
yeah.
It's a movie. It's not
It's
just
a
a
good
Bond movie.
story, as
Right.
opposed to GoldenEye, which is a bunch of action set pieces
Yeah.
mashed together.
Yeah.
And as much as I defend Die Another Day, it's this. I mean, I have my reasons,
Yeah.
especially character-wise.
Which
but
yeah.
it's still
Surprised
a
to hear you
Bond.
defend that sooner than GoldenEye.
You defend Star Crash, so let's all have we all have our thing, right, John?
I guess that's true.
Look,
I
I might
guess
as
Star
well.
Crash is my thing.
Yeah, you defend Star Crash.
You showed me the tattoo on your ass of stuff.
You're not supposed to tell people about that.
Yeah. So
It's not
no.
Carolyn Monroe, the robot.
It's the
from Star
robot.
Crash.
Don't tell people that.
Hey, listen, I'm one of 3 people who actually likes the Hobbit movies. So
We all have our thing,
we
exactly.
all have our thing.
We all have our problems.
We all have
all
our
have-
issues.
We all have our skeletons in our film closet.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, you're right. Casino Royale it has a better story. But we really do need to. But we also need to talk about like Martin Campbell's touch on that, and it's just amazing. And I think it's maybe one of those things where being the workman type director came in handy for him, because if it had been a more auteur director, would that movie have worked? Would they have been able to pull off what he pulled off, which is introduce to the world 2 massively popular Bonds? And I also want to point out, here's another thing that Martin Campbell didn't have to deal with GoldenEye. He was having to deal with introducing a Bond with an actor that people were so not on board with.
People were still into Brosnan. That's the other thing people forget is that after Die Another Day, people weren't like, well, he's done. People were very much willing to watch the next Brosnan one.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
He was getting so old, though.
I mean, not so old. Like, he was nearing 50, but
Way too old for Halle Berry.
Oh, please.
come on.
Oh, please. This is the thing. The whole he's so old.
No,
Roger
it's
Moore.
an arbitrary point. I agree, but I think I really liked Casino Royale, and I know that we've already said that ad nauseum at this point, all of us. And
Have I?
We can all agree it's a good movie.
Did Tony like it?
I think
Loved it. It's my favorite Bond
I
film.
think it's a fair question to ask, though, if anyone else could have done as good a job as him, and I think totally.
Well, here's why I don't agree. And
And I'm
And this
with you,
is why.
Tony.
yeah, I don't agree. And I mean, first off, there's the more anecdotal thing where Sam Mendes was even asked, and he actually publicly said that he thought Daniel Craig was an awful choice for Bond. Ironic. So there's that. But even more to the point, Martin Campbell showed with GoldenEye that he understands what makes classic Bond work. So Martin Campbell, being someone who's as flexible as he is, usher in a new Bond, but be able to bring it into a new era, but still keep it a recognizably James Bond film, is so important because that's what he brings to that picture. It's not that he can direct a script better than anybody or he can put together an action set piece better than anybody. It's that he can ease us into this new version of this character, of this icon, while still paying homage and still feeling like it's part of the canon. I mean, and David Arnold also does an excellent job with this because that Bond score, you don't hear that Bond theme until the very end, but it still feels like a Bond score, and that's kind of
utilizes the Chris Cornell song,
the Chris Cornell song, which is awesome by
as
the
the
way.
theme of the film.
But the thing that Martin Campbell does is that he keeps it. You know, he knows what he. I don't think anyone else could have, with as much passion and with as much dedication to the Bond of old, be able to bring us into. It almost felt like he's digging away at the layers of Bond to reveal this vulnerability underneath, but you really can't do that unless you have the veneer correct. Martin Campbell gets that veneer so right.
Think Christopher Nolan would have been tapped at that time and done a good job?
I think he would have made a good film. I don't think he would have made the Casino Royale that I love. Yeah. And I think it's
a hypothetical thing,
For sure.
what I'm bringing up. But I'm just saying, like, Christopher Nolan's always been someone who's been hovering around that franchise for a while, who's definitely expressed his interest in doing a film like that.
Yeah.
But he probably will never do it.
No, because he's made them. He's already made them.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. In his own way. But I'm saying, like, if you can just imagine, though, what I'm saying, like, he, like you said, he's already kind of made that movie. I could have seen him doing
the Bond movies, the directors were never the stars.
No,
the star was the star.
Yeah,
I know.
Sean Connery was the fucking thing.
Yeah,
you know, Terrence Fisher. I mean, it's a little, I'm not trying to underplay the contribution him and especially Guy Hamilton made, where like they really fucking made, like, this is what a James Bond movie is.
Yeah.
This is how this person is. This is how this character is. And this is the energy of the series. And this is how adventurous, and this is how sexy and romantic and dangerous.
You mean
all that exuberance and all of that, what did I say? Terrence Young. Terrence Fisher was a Hammer director.
Exactly.
I very much apologize.
No.
Terrence Young. And you know, everything that people think of when they think of classic Bond, it's in those early films.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
That's something to say. No, I'm kidding.
No, sorry. I just thought you were done.
No, it like all of that stuff. I mean, in terms of what you're talking about, John, and like, oh well, this director could have done it. Yes, but I got to stand by the notion that like it's a lucky kind of fortuitous thing that it was Campbell at a time. There's no guarantee. They got the guy that GoldenEye. That meant shit in terms of like, oh yeah, well he's perfect to bring in post 9/11 gritty dark version of James Bond. You know, by the way, there's no climax where it's about saving the world. There's not really any big explosions as far as I remember. Or I guess the plane, the jet. Yes, a building collapses into the water, but whatever. That's
like a minor terrorist attack. That's nothing.
And look,
huge set piece, but I'm underplaying it.
It fits well into the post 9/11 aesthetic. It's fine.
And if I could just say one thing specifically about Nolan, I love Nolan. He's one of my favorite directors. And I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I love pretty much his entire filmography.
He did that?
Yeah, he did. You ever heard of this guy named Batman? But
dick.
He's a fucking dick.
He's a fucking dick. But the thing that Christopher Nolan, I have to admit, struggles with in all of his movies are the romances. I think it's fair to say his most effective romance is Rachel Dawes and Bruce Wayne in the Dark Knight trilogy. And it's not that great.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, you're right. He would do a terrible Bond film.
Yeah. So, no, it's not that he would make a terrible Bond film. I think he'd make a fantastic Bond film.
Make a shitty one.
No, he would make a fantastic Bond
No,
film.
you've changed my mind. I'm going
Oh,
to take back what I said.
Yeah, well, I'm going to finish what I'm saying.
No, that's fine. I just want you to know for the record, I've
Yeah.
changed my mind, and I think that Martin Campbell is lightning in a bottle, and no one else could have done the job either.
I think Tom Shadyac of Bruce Almighty and Ace Ventura and Liar Liar would make a great Bond film.
Oh yeah.
Steve Odekirk would have
Steve-
done a good one.
I think Bob Odenkirk. would be
Bob
a great
Odenkirk.
Bond.
Oh, Bob Odenkirk as Bond and Steve Odenkirk behind the camera.
Oh
Yes.
my God! You
And
guys want a
Steve
James Bond?
Guttenberg.
Better Call Saul.
Steve Guttenberg is a Bond villain.
You know what I'm surprised by is that, and I know this is a little tangential. I know we're talking about.
It's
Martin-
totally related to Martin Campbell.
Can I just go on a little tangent for a moment?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Is
You
it
know-
about Star Crash?
Well, no, just about the whole concept of like restarting a franchise, which I think is very relevant in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going
How
to be
so?
well. Shut up and I'll tell you. So it'll be
Uh-oh.
interesting to see what's going to happen now with the current Bond franchise that Martin Campbell set up.
It's still going?
It is. It's still going. They still got that one coming out, apparently.
One day.
The one that will only come out whenever either Amazon or Apple really decide to get serious about which is the bigger streaming company next to Netflix and decide that it's totally worth the gamble to buy out the James Bond IP. And the next time they decide to restart the franchise, completely destroys their company from the inside out because of how expensive it is. But
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see what they decide to do with restarting the franchise. And I've always sort of reimagined James Bond myself with the Roger Thornhill theory that, like, you know, James Bond was a series of agents throughout history that assumed an alias as James Bond and was the notorious spy, the notorious super spy that all the superpowers and evil supervillains around the world knew to be afraid of if they heard his name somewhere lurking down the corridors of their secret lairs. So I don't really buy for a single goddamn second that everything that happens at Casino Royale is like the canon, and the chronology would be totally askew as a result. So it's like, why bother even asserting that Daniel Craig's James Bond is the James Bond? And I think it's something that gets sorely lost on me after Casino Royale, because it's something that gets asserted very deliberately in Skyfall. They assert this is the canon original, genuine article, James Bond original, copyright, trademark. And you're like, why this guy? Why is he so separate and above the rest of everything that I've already? Why can't we just embrace the whole franchise and everything that goes with it? And I hope that the producers get wise enough to see that fans really do appreciate the variety in what franchises have to offer throughout eras and ages and generations that come around to experience it, as we kind of seen from the Brosnan era into the Craig era, and prior to all that, even dating back from Connery to Moore, from Moore to Lazenby to Dalton. It's interesting to see all these different flavors, and like, I think a lot of fans would appreciate the concept that all of those James Bonds were real, that they were all canon, that we shouldn't try to turn a blind eye to the past, but try and embrace it a little more. And it'd be nice to restart the franchise and just start with James Bond dies. And then they have to hire a new James Bond and train him up to be James Bond, which is a concept that was visited very briefly in that Woody Allen James Bond movie, Casino Royale.
Which was dog shit.
Whatever.
Absolute dog shit.
Just the concept alone that, like, the name James Bond can be asserted as an alias, I think would be fun to reboot the franchise. And I can't really imagine where else to go from here, because I really do think that what's sorely missing from the rest of the movies after Casino Royale is, like, fun. While I really appreciate the story, I just feel like at the end of the day, they're not as fun as the older ones.
Oh, so I disagree with almost.
I yield my
I'll
time.
be very quick, Tony.
Go
I
ahead.
disagree with
time.
everything
I
John
yield my
said.
time.
Yeah,
I yield my time.
I totally disagree. I think that theory is dumb.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree with Rick. So,
God!
I'm sorry. No.
Please leave this in the episode.
I will. That's a hard no for me, and I'll tell you why. So first off, I will give you that Quantum of Solace is not as fun as Casino Royale. Casino Royale in itself isn't really fun at all.
Who is
So
that
I will.
movie for?
I don't know. I think it's the only. It's probably one of my least. It's my least favorite of the Craig films because it's the only Bond film that is almost ashamed to be a Bond film.
One of my least favorite movies to look at.
Agreed. No question there. Skyfall and Spectre. Now I love Skyfall, but what I will give Skyfall and Spectre for all their flaws, I had a great time watching them, and I think they're a lot of fun. Spectre gets boring. I grant you there, but I don't think it gets like so relentlessly like bleak or anything that it's like that it becomes like almost depressing to watch. I think it's like a boring. It has its moments, its vast moments of boredom, which is kind of par for the course for the franchise. Now, as far as that theory in terms of different Bonds, the Craig films are really not doing anything different in terms of establishing this is the same character than the older films were. I mean, the Connery films, it was very clear that was the same character. They definitely they established, and especially with George Lazenby Beyond, just from the sheer number of times that they reference Tracy either directly or indirectly, and that marriage, that it's the same character, which kind of starts stretching when you think about that. Really, from 1962 to 1989 is the same guy, whatever.
That's why I disagree with John.
Exactly.
I didn't mean to be harsh about the dumb thing, but I think it's a lot more fun to think that that James Bond is 100 fucking 20 years old by GoldenEye.
Don't touch that man.
And yet you
He just keeps getting surgery and like muscle.
Oh my god, he's just this like transplant Frankenstein creature. I really see that now.
No, for sure. And
I believe that more as the Roger Moore movies are going along, right?
Exactly. And then I mean that's the thing. He references like even the slight references, like in World Is Not Enough, where she's like, "Have you ever lost anyone?" And he has that moment where he's just like, "We're not talking about this." Like, that could be interpreted as like a nod to Tracy, you know.
They'll bring it up in License to Kill.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a direct reference right there. No question. No question.
I mean, I just think to a certain extent, if you're gonna
your time.
I yield my time. I apologize.
So
Speaker, if I may I interject?
Reclaiming my time.
May I reclaim?
Sir.
May I approach the podium, please?
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
I forgot I was gonna say.
What was that? What was that? Wood
the bit got away from you.
So now that we've disposed with the Bond of Two World theories, I think or what's the name of the theory? The John, what was the name that you called the theory?
I thought I heard him say Rupert Thorne.
Oh, the Roger Thornhill theory.
The Roger Thornhill.
That's that association to the movie North by Northwest, where Cary Grant plays a guy who gets mistaken for the identity of a United States spy named Roger Thornhill.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
And then he falls in love with Eva Marie Saint, who they meet on a train, but she's secretly actually a spy working for the United States that's infiltrated Jackie Mason and his henchman Martin Landau.
Yeah, and then she.
And there's a climax on Mountain Rushmore.
And
actually, North by Northwest.
But
let him finish the theory. Yeah, on the face of Mount Rushmore.
Nothing. No, I was going to say, funny enough, that theory, because North by Northwest, in terms of cinema, is a big influence. Was a big influence on how they did the Bonds.
Oh, and Ian Fleming originally wanted to cast Cary Grant as James Bond, but he was too old at the time.
I think
Grant probably would not have done it.
I think it was something.
Why not?
I don't think that he was
because
old
he said no. All right.
From what I understand, I don't think it was that he was too old. I think he only wanted to do one film. And was like, we need someone who commits a little bit more than that.
I've never heard that, so it must not be true.
That's right. I didn't hear that either, so no.
Doctor, no.
Hey, Doctor, no.
What?
I think in the making of Doctor No, when they were talking about casting Bond, they mentioned something about Cary Grant. Or it may not have been Cary Grant. I think maybe there was another actor that they wanted that they would only commit to one film.
No, you're right. I'm looking it up right now. You're 100% on the money.
That's just crazy, though, to me, because that would have been somewhere around 1961 or 62.
Yeah.
And
1962 is when
he had
Dr.
already he was in Notorious in 1945.
Okay, so
He was in
To
Gunga
bring-
Din in 1939.
good din.
I love Gunga Din.
Me too.
I mean, I will say though, I think we do need to do a special like Indiana Jones retrospective because it is very inspired by Bond, and it is the 25th anniversary.
Since when?
Since always, you prick.
Steven Spielberg literally
I don't
told.
remember Bond treasure hunting. This is bullshit. I'm kidding.
As far as I know,
As far as I know,
Bond.
the first Indiana Jones takes place during World War II. Explain.
Bond don't teach no class.
I didn't see James Bond fighting any Nazis.
What gives?
he didn't fight no Nazis.
The
Well-
quality you've come.
Well, listen. All we got to do if we want to have fucking Bond fight some Nazis, just have him fight the insurrectionists on the from the Capitol, and we can
know
bring him
what?
into modern day.
Why don't-
That's
why
the
don't
kind
they
of
just-
timely topic you'll
Why don't they
expect
just
here.
reboot it? Why don't they just reboot it to be set back in the 50s and make it more exciting when he gets these gadgets? I feel like that really is missing. It would be great if they set it back retro style, or just fuck it, set it in the 60s, set it
It
early
already
60s.
cost $1 million. $1 million. It already cost like $1 billion. I dated myself.
They already cost $1 million. Well, what if they made a Bond film with $2 million?
Can you imagine?
Yeah, we got Russia with Love. But
They could give him a whole gun that folds up and everything.
oh my god. So I want to wrap up.
Are the Broccoli's from Brooklyn?
They're from Long Island, actually.
All right, I just love this idea that's just like, oh yeah, and then he's got a fucking cell phone in his fucking shoe. Yeah. Anyway.
Take the gun, leave the cannoli.
And that, I think, pretty much sums it up. I think that's a good place to end it, boys. So yeah, Martin Campbell. I mean, this guy has had a hell of a career. So awesome talking about this awesome filmmaker with you, gentlemen. We touched on Rick, you mentioned at the top of the episode that he doesn't always win with every film, but I think it's fair to say that when he wins, he wins.
Yeah. He's a real craftsman, and he's one of those filmmakers that like they get kind of shafted as like not worth celebrating, and I don't think that's fair.
Yeah,
because I think, frankly, the majority of directors and young directors that are going to make it, they're going to be workers.
Yeah, they are.
They're going to be people that go from TV to a film to a TV to film. And they're going to work.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah.
And I hope they get to do a vision. I hope they get to do a personal thing. God bless them, or for the lack of a better term. But Martin Campbell has had a career where he's gotten to do a mix of things. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But when it fucking works, he thrills you.
And I couldn't have said it more. John, do you have any final words on Martin Campbell that you might want to impart?
No. I mean, my thoughts echo most of what Rick was saying. I think, master craftsman just about sums it up. He's someone who sweats, and it shows.
You've mentioned like his fucking go attitude on a set.
Yeah. I mean, he's intense. He's intense.
Tough as a knife.
He's just trying to push forward, the energy and permeate it in the film. And that's the kind of filmmaking that I really respect. That's the kind of filmmaking that like Paul Verhoeven does, and a lot of others who just understand the energy that they need to maintain, and they don't lose it. And it's really easy for directors to, shoot out of order, go to a location all the way on the other side of the world, to connect a scene that was shot 2 weeks prior to that to this next shot, where it cuts in, and they lose the momentum. They lose the grasp of where they're coming from, where they're going, and keeping that arrow flying through the air straight with all that momentum.
That's a really good point. Campbell's movies have a fluidity.
Yes, they do.
For sure.
Whether they end up coming together in terms of like a satisfying narrative, they have a fucking fluidity to them.
That's true. I think that's true.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying that lamely. Like even something like Green Lantern, it doesn't come together tonally, but it flows.
It flows. It moves. I agree. I agree.
It's a
All
little
right.
weak, but it's something.
But yeah, I think but yeah. So everything you guys said is true. It was really great talking about with you guys. Can't wait to get into next week's episode. You know his name will return with our discussion of Spectre. It's gonna be a good discussion, but yeah, it's
It's not one that I remember fondly in the theaters. I'll say that much.
yeah, but we're gonna get into it once we've rewatched it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
so
see. We'll see what rewatching it feels like.
we'll see what rewatching it brings us. All right, so folks, everybody out there, please stay safe. Thank you guys so much for your support and the wonderful feedback that we've had on the show so far. So from all of us, so you know his name. Can't wait to see you guys on the other end. And remember, nobody does it better. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.